Hi, welcome back to Fresh Faces, New Ideas. My name is David. If you like this channel, or you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Now this video is going to be the second video from my previous live stream that happened on 4/16. That live stream is already up on the channel. You can watch it in its entirety. This specific segment is about police brutality, the recent killings, about the leaks from the police and what they have donated to, who they've donated to, one of them being Kyle Rittenhouse. This is also about Merrick Garland rolling back a Trump-era regulation that allowed us not to look into problematic police departments. So please enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. We're going to talk about the police. This is the footage of Adam Toledo. Now, I'm also going to talk about some disinformation from Adam Toledo. This footage was released last night, and Adam Toledo was a 13-year-old boy who was shot in Chicago. I'm not going to play the footage. He was shot within about a half second. Now, before we go further than that, the response to this was Sean Hannity called him a 13-year-old man when Kyle Rittenhouse, who we are going to talk about Kyle Rittenhouse because more stuff came out about that, was called a 17-year-old boy, not by Sean Hannity per se, but by Pam Bondi. But when it's a young African kid, because he's Mexican as well, I think. They're a man, but if it's a white kid, it's a little boy. I mean, even Don Jr. was described as a kid. He's like 50. So let's talk about this. The other thing is people like Andy Ngo who are saying that the fact that this kid was his nickname was apparently Little Homicide or Baby Diablos. That's justification for him being shot. Listen, this is, and I guarantee you, or I don't guarantee you, but at some point I feel like I'm going to have to cover a Candace Owens video saying how, he's no angel, so it's okay that he was killed. Because he did the same thing with George Floyd. Nobody's arguing that he's an angel. Also, because of his nickname was Little Homicide or whatever, we don't know the background of it. He could have just had a ridiculous nickname. Just because your nickname could be Horsecock Giant Penis with $1 bajillion, and you won't have any of those things. So the argument there is, because he had a bad nickname, they deserve to kill him, which is fucking crazy. It makes no sense to be able to argue that. None. So the other thing is that my understanding of this case is, let's see if they covered this. The boy does not appear to be holding a weapon. In the split second he is shot, but police video shows a handgun near the spot where he falls. Let's see. The clip shows the officer jumping out of his squad car, chasing him down an alley. Police stop right there. Hands, show me your hands. The officer shouts, "Drop it," and fires his weapon 19 seconds after exiting the squad car. Throwing something through a gap in the fence as the officer... So it's shining a light. Now, the light that you see is not a flashlight. It's a strobe light. And we'll talk about strobe lights in a minute, and thank you to the Boba Fett column for pointing this out. That's what was said. The teenager was with a 21-year-old man who had fired a gun at a passing car. The gunfire drew police to the area, resulting in the deadly confirmation. So, basically, somebody else had a gun. And he might have had a gun, but it looks like he ditched it. Even in the pictures Andy Ngo pointed, where the body is and where the firearm is found is not the same. They shot this kid so fast. Now, part of the reason is they're on edge because they don't know who is a firearm, and they're responding to a shots fired, apparently. The other thing is he's using a strobe light, but he's by himself. This is not proper procedure. So let's see what happens when you use a... this is Tactical Concerns. This is from the police magazines, from Police Patrol. This is from 2010. Tactical Concerns. When deployed without the benefits of an accompanying constant light cover officer, a strobe light may make the user experience an inability to see or recognize subtle, deliberate, slow movements made by the suspect. In training classes, I routinely able to move my hands 8 to 10 inches before my threatening motions are recognized by the students who are exposing me to the strobe. Of course, my movements must be very slow and deliberate in order to avoid detection by the students. Also, exposure to any bright light in a dark environment after low light adaptation has been achieved will affect deterioration in subject's night vision. So this is the person. But what this is saying is he should not have been using this by himself. Somebody else should have been there, because when you're using the strobe lights, your brain fills in the gaps in between the flashes. So that means you're not seeing things correctly. You're seeing things that aren't there. Look, the overall problem with this and all the other things is the way policing is done. There's too many times that a routine traffic stop ends in a death. I think it was 143 times last year. There are countries that don't have 143 deaths by police in decades. We have it in 1 year from one aspect. And one of the ways to alleviate this appears to be an option of having less police. There's data showing that the less interaction you have with the police, the less likely you are to be killed by them. Another problem is for the police training to change. So one of the things that we could do is make it so that the taxpayers aren't the ones who pick up the tab when the city gets sued by the police. Currently, as it stands, most police officers, if you're accused of wrongdoing and lose a civil suit, the taxpayers have to pay it up. It's picked up by the state. You yourself may not have to take any payments for it, and you may not have to resign or anything. If you actually put it on their pension system, then they would be a lot more likely to go against each other. Because as we just saw, not in this particular case, but during the BLM riots in Boston, the protest in Boston, there was an officer who was on camera. The guy said, "Look, my thing is my vest is on, my camera is on," and the guy was sitting there bragging about how he ran over protesters. And then when the guy told him again, he changed how he was talking about it, but it was still the same thing. And that person is back on duty without any issues. This is part of the problem as well. Maryland has changed how they're doing it. They got rid of their police bill of rights, and they've allowed a tribunal, mostly overseen by citizens, to decide punishments. There are some law enforcement officers on the tribunal, but they're changing how policing goes. Currently, the way we teach policing is a problem. They're too jacked up. They're too ready to kill people. They have too many toys. Now, for this strobe light video with the little kid in Chicago, it is not clear where he got this strobe light, whether it was given to him by the department or he just managed to get it himself. But he clearly did the wrong thing by having it by himself. That's not how he's supposed to use it. So the issue with the policing is they're too jacked up. They need to change how their law enforcement tactics go. And here's the other thing. It's very strange that policing has not changed. There's this resistance to change. Now, everyone says, there's a resistance to change. When COVID first hit, how long did it take for hospitals across the country, once they had an idea of what they were dealing with, to all adapt new procedures to deal with COVID? About a month? Maybe a little longer? But they were all able to do it. When the military has issues with officers with members dying or faulty equipment or things like that, they do something to change it. The police want to be the last part of the military where they're the really cool guy, executing things on demand, but they're not doing the training before it. They're not doing the changes that are required in order to be able to do this. And there's more of this. They're just so jacked up and ready for this. And a lot of it is the people in the police. There is a problem with them. There's a lot of data pointing to a infiltration of white supremacists in the police, an infiltration of neo-Nazis, and issues like that. So now we're going to look for this. Part of more information, BLM. Now this part goes part of the other thing. Every time one of these things happen, we always hear the people say, or the officials say, we don't want any violence. We hope the crowd is fine. The other part of that is always not mentioned. The argument is, we hope the police also don't bring protests or don't inflict violence on protesters indiscriminately. a lot of what we saw was police driving into people during the protest, the BLM protest. It wasn't just police, it was other people doing it as well. But a lot of what we saw from camera footage was a response to Black Lives Matter, which was anti-police brutality. And let's be clear, it's not just Black Lives Matter. It's for all police brutality that they're protesting against. So whenever you see a conservative say, oh, why isn't Black Lives Matter talking about this? There's two things you need to look for. Is the person who killed that person either arrested or dead? Or is that a case where they actually there are people advocating for that person and they're just lying about it? Now, why do I want to show this? 93% of Black Lives Matter protests have been peaceful. That's what the report says. Let's see if I can find exactly what it says. 42% of respondents read most protesters are trying to incite violence or destroy property. That is just not true. And part of it is because the media essentializes these type of things. They say, oh, look, there's violence. You got to cover the violence. And Fox News is saying they're all thugs and tries to argue BLM as terrorists. The problem is more so that when you have this idea of mob violence is not the mob will ultimately become unruly. There are absolutely, and I'm not arguing that there isn't, people who loot and rob during these things. The problem is how the police respond to those. Too often, a more violent government response in which authorities use force more often than not when they presented at protest, and that they disproportionately use force while intervening into demonstrations associated with the Black Lives Matter relative to other types of demonstrations. Report the U.S. has a heightened risk of political... So what this means is, and there's studies to do this, that when they deal with Black Lives Matter protests, or any of these police protests, because that's how it's shifted now, they're more likely to aggressively respond to them. We saw this, the perfect example was January 6th. They were told to stand down, and they were not able to respond with the same type of preparation that they were to Black Lives Matter. Because if you remember when you've all seen that footage of the soldiers fully geared out. Let's find it. BLM officers for... Let's see if I can find that exact video. This. We all remember this picture. This picture. None of this was ready for the January 6th. They were literally unarmed because some of their shields weren't properly stored in the right temperature, which is something I didn't even know that could happen, to the point where they would shatter when they were hit. So one of the other articles I was reading was a way to deal with this is the police not indiscriminately going after the entirety of the crowd when something happens. It's instead to target what they're doing to the people who are causing the rioting and the looting. Instead of going after the vast majority of people, focus on the ones who are actually causing the problem. And even in a lot of these cases, the organizers of the event will self-police themselves. When the police spend too much time focusing on the peaceful protesters than the actual ones who are causing the problem, they were allowing the actual ones to cause the problem further. And it just riles people up more. So this came out today. U.S. police and public officials donated to Kyle Rittenhouse. So if you don't remember who Kyle Rittenhouse is, I don't think he's a neo-Nazi. There was something about that. Kyle Rittenhouse was a 17-year-old. He is also a boy, just like the kid from Chicago was. Kyle Rittenhouse drove to another state. In Kenosha. He was from a different state from the Kenosha, with a firearm, which he wasn't allowed to do, to go hang out with some militias, to go defend some property against a BLM protest. Now, we don't know what happened entirely, but something happened where a guy was chasing Kyle, and he threw a bag with a water bottle at him. And we believe that somebody else fired a shot, in which Kyle Rittenhouse shot shot the first guy. He then ran away, and when the crowd tried to apprehend him, he shot another person. So, look, I'm not getting into the debate of, should he have put down his firearm or what. But Kyle Rittenhouse walked away. And he went home before he was arrested for this. He killed 2 people, and he went home. And he was then seen, after he got bailed, he became like this messiah figure for the right. We love him so much. He was basically their, if the Catholic high school kid who had a firearm, that's what Kyle Rittenhouse was. He was then seen with the Proud Boys, who, oh no, it's not the Proud Boys, the Oath Keeper, the leader of an Oath Keeper, and apparently he was like the leader in a band, just pled guilty to January 6th insurrection. So what is this video? U.S. police and public officials donate to Kyle Rittenhouse data breach relieves. A data breach of a Christian crowdfunding website. So let's also do this other thing. It's awfully weird that Christians who are supposed to be, love and cherish your other man are always kind of in the wrong side of this. They're always for the violence. Many of these cases, donations were attached to their official email addresses, raising questions about the use of public resources supporting campaigns. So the breach, I guess they just hacked this. Include Kyle Rittenhouse, who stands accused of murdering 2 left-wing protesters. So this is what happened. So he raised $500,000 for this. So one of the donations made up September 11th was made by anonymously but associates with the official email address of Sergeant William Kelly, who currently serves as the executive officer of Internal Affairs. The Internal Affairs in Norfolk, in Virginia. And the donation carries a comment: God bless. Thank you for your courage. Keep your head up. You've done nothing wrong. Every rank and file police officer supports you. Don't be discouraged by the actions of the political class of law enforcement leadership. What this means, this is a recurring issue. There's a lot of other ones. I'm not going to go through all of them. But this one particular is a problem. His job is internal affairs. And what he's saying is, hey, kid, you did the right thing. Don't worry that you murdered 2 people. We, the police, support you. Ignore what the political class says. They're just being PC. This is an internal affairs officer arguing this. That's what they're arguing. This is part of the problem. The problem is not just there's a few bad apples. The problem is when the good apples try to stop them, they're punished, or the bad apples are just shifted around, or the rank and file or they're bad all the way through. Policing has to be changed. We cannot do nothing about policing because the police will not make changes. We've seen this. This is not acceptable either. And let's be clear, I'm not saying that nobody should ever be killed by the police. I'm not saying that police shouldn't have political views. I'm saying this is a problem where the police are saying, I support you for murdering people, and don't worry about it. It's a problem, the amount of damage that they do to people. It's a problem, the amount of people that they kill over nothing. It makes sense that a little kid in Chicago would run. It's 2 a.m. I don't know why he's out there. I don't give a fuck. Being out at 2 a.m. with whatever your nickname is should not be a death sentence. Interactions with the police too often result in death, and they result in brutality, and they should not. That is not how this country should work. That is not how policing should work. So yes, pulling police out of shifting more of their responsibilities away from them to something else is definitely the way to do this, because they're not really trained to deal with all of these situations. Having more people who are trained to deal with mental illness, to deal with domestic issues, to deal with kids who are having mental illnesses like that makes more sense. And arguably, we should do what New Zealand does, where they have a separate branch that deals with traffic violations. They can't arrest you. They don't have the same firearms. And I'm sure, look, because of how America is, there will be problems with that. Until we change the way we view guns and the way we view police officers, the way police officers view the people they're protecting, We will not have a country. We're not going to have a perfect country, but we should not have a country where there's an epidemic of mass shootings or just gun violence in general, and there's an epidemic of police violence and police shootings. I'm not saying that the police should never kill anybody. I'm not saying the police should walk around disarmed with bears and hug everybody. I'm saying the training needs to be changed so they can actually de-escalate more often than not. Too often we hear from these situations, "Oh, I feared for my life," or "Oh, I made a mistake." And I was talking about it with the Dwayne Wright case, because as far as I know, that is the most indiscriminate one. That is absolutely appears to be an accident. You can see in the video she yells, "Taser, taser, taser." She shot a kid. And you can see her response is, "Oh shit, I shot a kid." That's still not acceptable. You do not get to have more power over people's, whether they live or breathe, and then make accidents and say, "Oops, I'm sorry." The more power you have, the harsher the consequences are when you abuse that power. The higher the standard for you to use that power should be. That's what I'm saying. If you have more power, you need to be held to a higher standard. So let's go to this last part. This is a Trump Twitter era. So AG Garland rescinds Trump's memo that curtails use of consent decrees used in investigations. So what this does is it was a restriction on the Justice Department to force changes in police departments and other local agencies accused of abuse, rescinding Jeff Sessions' 2018 memo that curtailed the use of consent decrees in such cases. So what this says is twofold. Under Obama, a good amount of oversight was if they looked at 3 precincts a year. There's something like 100,000 precincts across the country. And if they looked at 3, that was a good year. We need to put more money into the federal government being able to look into policings that have a habit of violence or police brutality so that they can take a look. So we don't just go in after there's another George Floyd or after there's another Devontae or Dwayne Wright or an Eric Gardner. We need them to be able to look at these and say, this is a problem. We're going to deal with it now. So let's hope that they actually do some of this. So let's wrap this up. My final hope is that Americans know better. Look, we deserve better. We don't deserve to live in a country where there is mass firearm death. We don't deserve to live in a country where people are constantly getting killed by the police. And even if it's not whatever the data says, it is too many. There's more things this country deserves that are better. We deserve to have a more safe country. We deserve to have a fairer government. And the way to do that is for the government officials to be held accountable when they don't do the will of the people. Vote them out. It's also for them to push for the things that the people want. Pushing for bills like $11 minimum wage is not what the people want. They just don't. It doesn't track. It's not fair. We need to push for a fairer government. We need to push for better policing. We need to push for better gun laws. America's in a rough place right now. We have the power, the political willpower to do it. The people in charge have to follow up that willpower. What is the point of voting for you if you're not going to do the things we want? So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a good night. I'll have these videos up in the next couple of days. I'll have videos up daily. I'll see how this live stream ultimately ended up. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. And thank you very much.